Good afternoon, everyone, and apologies to those in the room for seeing my back. I'm Ross Levi. As many of you know, I'm the Executive Director of Tourism for New York State. I wanted to just start by letting you all know that Christine Nicholas sends her regrets and apologies. She had a last-minute family emergency that literally required her to turn around and go home. Nothing super serious, but important enough that she sends her regrets, and the first time since I've been with the Division of Tourism that she hasn't been at a meeting. So she sends her regrets, but we are ably represented by another tech member who has agreed very last minute to pinch in to chair the meeting. I'll be turning it over to him momentarily. Just want to let folks know that it is Tourism Action Day. And we know that there's a lot of people coming in late, coming from legislative meetings, people that have to leave early to go to legislative meetings. That is all not only allowed, but applauded. We appreciate you being here advocating on behalf of our industry. And so at this point, I'm happy to turn it over to Dan Fuller from the Tourism Advisory Council, longtime member, who's agreed to pinch in as chair today. Thank you, Dan.
Well, thank you, Ross, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Albany. I'd like to call the meeting to order now, and I believe it's 1:05, and so let's take attendance and approve the minutes. So we'll start with the phone, and I will call the roster. Please acknowledge whether you're on the phone or not. Eleanor Tatum?
Here.
Catherine Nichols?
I'm here.
Ali Serrata? Sherman Thomas?
I'm here.
Tom Mulroy?
I'm here.
Patty Ornst?
I'm here.
Ellen Ames? Don Borchardt? Ron Offner?
Here.
And Corey Fromm. Okay, after that, then we will start. Is there anyone else on the phone right now that I didn't call?
Yes, George Tim with Marion.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, for those of you who are on the phone.
What was that? I'm sorry?
Cattaraugus County Tourism's here too, on the phone.
Great, thank you.
And then Lauren Wire from Finn Parkville Interpretive Center.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Phil Bowman's here from the Queensborough President's Office as well.
Terrific, thank you.
Do we have everyone now? Okay, great. For those here on the phone, just you know that we want to note that we'll be placing you on mute to eliminate any background noise that we may hear. If you'd like to say something, please press #6 to be unmuted. Once you're finished, press #6 to place your line back on mute. Now go around the table, starting to my right. Mr. Jeffries.
Don Jeffries, Visit Rochester, and also president of the New York State DMO Group.
Mark Dorr, president with the New York State Hospitality and Tourism Association.
Danae Jones-Persep with I Love New York.
Sarah Emmert with I Love New York.
Lisa Soto with I Love New York.
Kristen Hanfin, Lake George CDB.
Hi, Natasha Caputo, Westchester County, Hudson Valley.
Kelly Garofalo Wilkins, I Love New York.
Hannah Packman, I Love New York.
Martha Wilson, I Love New York.
Bob Provost, New York State Tourism Industry Association.
And I already introduced myself, Ross Levi.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people, but I know customarily we love people to identify themselves, so maybe we want to quickly go around the rest of the room as well.
Cyrus, County Tourism. Josiah Brown, New York's Best Experiences, and also New York State Tourism Industry Association.
Greg Marshall, Visit Rochester.
Chris Guidone, Big Picture Tourism.
Heather Bagshaw, Wayne County Tourism, Hudson Valley Tourism, Catskill Region.
Amanda Dana, Orange County Tourism, Hudson Valley Tourism.
Mary Kay Burbank, Dutchess Tourism, Hudson Valley Tourism.
Tom Martinelli, New York by rail.
Judy Seth is a Binghamton, Central New York region.
David Stockhauser, Southern Tier Mobile Center.
Rachel Labor Polvino, Visit Rochester.
Kelly Brown, Margarita, with I Love New York.
Adam Strauss, United States.
Steve Moyen, Niagara.
Captain English Sharp Association, Destination Marketing Organization.
Richard Clark, New York.
Boston, New York City. Okay, is that everyone? Okay, thank you. Just in case we didn't get everyone's name that's attending, we'll be circulating a sheet. If you could just sign off on that, that would certainly help Kelly. So at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion for the approval of minutes. I believe those were distributed earlier. Do we have a motion?
Any TAC members on the phone, a motion to approve the minutes? Anyone?
Don't forget it's #6.
TAC members on the phone?
May have to table.
Okay. Okay, great. Do we have a second?
Catherine Nichols.
Okay, thank you. Are there any changes or approval of the minutes? Okay, if not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay, from this, I'd like to proceed to Christine's report. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here, but did submit a report that I'd like to share with everyone. And I'd like to thank everyone for being in Albany today. As you know, Tourism Action Day, and the primary reason we're meeting in Albany is so that TAC members could be a part of this event. With that in mind, we're invited 3 guest speakers to join us today, each representing one of the major tourism groups in New York State: the New York State Hospitality and Tourism Association, the New York State Destination Marketing Organization, and the New York State Tourism Industry Association. Each of these groups have a unique focus and goal within the industry, which our guests will explain to us a little later. But all of them are extremely vested in the success of New York State tourism. So we thought it timely to invite them to join us during one of the most important days of the year for tourism in New York. Before we hear from our guests, Ross and team will update us on what they've been up to since our last meeting. And for member updates, before we get started, I'll have one piece of housekeeping that Christine would like to do. Earlier this month, Gail Grimmett submitted her letter of resignation from the TAC board. Gail has been a tremendous resource for the state's tourism industry, both on this board and during her time at Delta. We're extremely grateful to Gail for her contributions, and I'd like to personally thank her, as well as all the TAC members, for her service to New York State. Tourism Action Day. For my report, I'd like to say a few words about Tourism Action Day and thank everyone who is here today to lobby on behalf of New York State tourism. The work that you do, all of you on behalf of the tourism industry today and every day, is crucial for the well-being of our industry. I can't stress enough how important it is that you're here meeting with your representatives to let them know tourism means business. Last year alone, New York State welcomed 243.8 million visitors and saw nearly $67.6 billion in direct visitor spending. Tourism is the 3rd largest private sector employer, supporting 938,000 jobs. It generated $8.5 billion in state and local taxes, providing an average per household savings of $1,172 in taxes. The total economic impact of New York State tourism was $108.7 billion. We often repeat these numbers, but it's important that we persist in voicing their accomplishment so that tourism can continue to grow, generate billions, and positively impact the vibrant economy of New York State. Luckily, New York State is in much better position than many states, and our elected officials on all sides of government really do understand how important tourism is and have been amazing partners. I want to emphasize that TAC is here today year-round with 6 meetings throughout the year. We view these meetings as an opportunity to provide the Division of Tourism, their partners, and tourism stakeholders a chance to highlight their great work, including what is currently trending in the industry, so that we can provide input and assist in promoting New York State tourism. That said, I want to thank everyone for attending these meetings and urge you to continue to do so that they can be as powerful and effective as possible. So with that, I'd like to move on to the I Love New York report, and I'll turn it over to Ross.
Thank you so much, Dan. So hello again. Welcome to Albany. There's, as usual, plenty that's been going on in the Division of Tourism. You're going to be hearing from a number of members of our team that can give you a pretty good 50,000 feet overview of everything we've been up to. You may have remembered at the last meeting I alluded to getting ready to go to the American Bus Association, and so I wanted to follow up on that marketplace and annual meeting that took place on January 28th in Louisville. As I mentioned last time, the Division of Tourism hasn't had a representative other than our industry going on its own in several years. So we were very glad to be able to respond to the request of the industry and be there officially to represent the state of New York and talk to all those involved in the group bus market once again. I gave you sort of a brief overview of the variety of experiences of that we expected to happen, and it really was a tremendous opportunity for us. New York State hosted a breakfast, something we hadn't done in a long time, for all the tour operators, about 300 of them that were there. And the theme was the Summer of Love, New York's Summer of Love. So to be able to capitalize on the Woodstock anniversary, World Pride and Stonewall 50, and indeed discovering what you loved in New York State, whatever that may be, for the upcoming year. We had a special performance by Melanie, the artist who did I Got a Brand New Pair of Roller Skates, You Got a Brand New Key, amongst other things. She sang 3 numbers and really connected with folks, told actually a great story about buses even. I gave an overview on the new developments in New York State, what was happening. We had some great giveaways, and it really became kind of the buzz of the conference. New York hadn't done anything like that in a long time. We had a lot of tour operators tell us to hear everything that was happening and everything that will be happening in the next few years was very exciting to them. So we were thrilled to be able to have that opportunity. I got a tour of the show floor from Pete Pantuzzo, the head of the New York Bus Association. John Percy and others were instrumental in making that happen. So we were thrilled to be there, and we look forward to talking about how we can expand our opportunity to attend that event next year as well. Also, it was literally that very same weekend, I was in New York City for TAC. The next day, I was at the first day of the New York Times Travel Show, and I was there for the second day of the New York Times Travel Show. Then I got on an airplane to go to Kentucky, and then came back to Albany. It was quite a journey. So we were having a lot going on right on the heels of the last TAC meeting, and the New York Times Travel Show was one of those. It was a really great event, and we have a brief report on that from Danae Jones, our team member, who headed up that effort. Danae.
Yes. As you guys know, we had the New York Times Travel Show on January 25th, and the 26th were the Consumer Days, and there was record-breaking number of attendees at the show. It was 35,568 people attended the New York Times Travel Show. That was the best number that they've had to date since they've been doing this show. I Love New York was able to collect 715 leads across multiple retrieval methods. We had people filling out postcards that we're going to send to them in the season that they want to travel. We had a gift application, and we also did regular band sketching. Stats. You know what I mean. Got a little mixed up there. And afterwards, we did a survey of the consumers that visited our aisle to just find out what they thought of it. And 87% of the people that we surveyed said they got new ideas of places to visit and things to do in New York State. We found some other interesting data as far as they're looking for specific destinations, special events, deals and offers, and travel ideas. So that was the New York Times Travel Show, and we were very excited with the results, and we hope to be able to participate again next year with all of our partners.
Great, thank you, Danae. I think anyone who attended that show, including our partners who exhibited there, would agree that it's the strongest presence we've had at that show. We've actually only been doing it for a few years now. Markley Wilson turned us on to it a number of years ago. It's obviously really important for our market, and every year I think people have seen, as I have, the progression. So that now that we have a really unified, powerful aisle all together, no one dribbling over on the sides or anything, that we're literally all together, branded very strongly. People know that they're arriving metaphorically and literally, I guess, in New York State. And Danae's did an amazing job of getting that together. We're so appreciative of our partners who are there displaying with us, and we look forward to, I don't know how we'll top it, but we look forward to bigger and better next year. So those are a couple of the sales efforts we did, ABA and the New York Times Travel Show. We've also been very busy internationally. For example, Mark Lee Kelly and myself attended the International Mediterranean Tourism Market, called IMTM, February 12th to 13th, which is the largest tourism industry conference in the Mediterranean, actually held in Israel. So you may ask yourself, well, why? I haven't heard Israel talk too much about in terms of our core markets. This, you may remember, it was a little while ago, was part of an initiative the governor announced on a trip to Israel, a partnership that I Love New York entered into with the Israeli Ministry of Tourism to talk about how we could work collectively to promote what is great in our markets to each other's country, particularly in a historic vein. It was called the Global Path Through History, so that we could talk about those historic attractions here in New York State that would be of interest to Israeli visitors, and Israel could talk about those things that would be interest of New Yorkers in Israel. And this was sort of the culmination of that effort. They provided us booth space, as well as a speaking opportunity at the opening ceremony, both of which were very good opportunities for us to get the word out about New York State. Mark Lee and I were also able to join a fan tour of operators and journalists, which, I would say almost surprisingly to me, I assumed the trade show would be the sort of most productive part of it. I dare say traveling for 4 or 5 days with 80 other tour operators and journalists was even a more valuable experience. It allowed us to really talk about New York State and really make relationships that we're going to be able to follow up on, because interestingly, the tour operators on that fam were from the UK and Australia and China and our core markets in Germany. The opening ceremony that, like I said, that I got to speak at was held in the caves of Zedekiah, but they're more commonly known as King Solomon's Caves. It's literally a cave, but it was done in this really spectacular, they did it up with all kinds of candles and lighting and a band and a stage show. It was really something. There were 200 people in attendance, including the mayor of Jerusalem, the Israel Ministry of Tourism officials, ministers of tourism literally from across the world, press, IMTM exhibitors, and operators and agents who were attending the conference. The only other speakers were the mayor of Jerusalem, the deputy secretary of the Israel Ministry of Tourism, the director of tourism for Jerusalem CVB, and the director of Jerusalem Hotel Association. So the only person speaking other than Israel was us, was the Division of Tourism. And that is because of this partnership we had struck. And it was a really amazing opportunity to talk about New York State. And in fact, the gentleman who was the head of Jerusalem Tourism said he was getting some grief about why are they selling New York at our event. But he had to remind them that this was actually part of a partnership where we had given access to some owned state access, some owned state assets here in New York for Israel to put up some commercials and things, so that it really was a mutual effort on both our parts. The next day we drove to Tel Aviv for the actual conference. You could see on the PowerPoint screen here what our booth looked like. It was literally a quarter of the Jerusalem booth. We were the only people from the United States exhibiting at this show. Which was, fun to have people come up and say, I didn't know New York was on the Mediterranean. But in fact, you didn't have to be on the Mediterranean. There were people from Asia and Europe and even, I think, South and Central America. But we were the only ones from the United States. And so, again, it was a really great opportunity. I can tell you there is much love for New York in Israel. People were excited to hear about coming here. Many people were either from here or had been here before, but we're very excited to hear about the opportunities outside New York City. So, we saw a lot of interest, had a lot of people constantly stopping by our booth, and Mark Lee received a number of good leads from outbound operators and agents that he'll be following up with. So, overall, it was a really great, productive effort. And speaking of Mark Lee International, there are 2 other efforts we've been involved with lately that he can give you a quick update on.
I just returned from ITB in Berlin, and never before have we had such impact on the industry there, and and never before do I feel that the team from New York State felt so proud about their presentation and their presence. We had 42 appointments during the media, press, and consumer days, but probably the impact of our presence was most poignantly shared at the annual I Love New York breakfast, which took place on Thursday. Not only did NYC and Company give updates on what's new in the city, including the Hudson Yards, which is going to be the largest private real estate development in the country, but we had Dutchess County presenting on what's new in Dutchess County. The representative of Niagara, Visit Niagara, was there to present. We also had Long Island's representative present, and the Germany-based representative of Wine, Water, and Wonders also gave an excellent presentation. And one of the highlights of the morning was the introduction by the representative of Legoland, who gave an update on what's new in New York State. So the presence and the presentations and the information which the media and the tour operators received from our presence at ITB was really quite impactful. Then there was Holiday World in Dublin. Holiday World to Ireland is what the New York Times show is to New York. And we were there with Mary Kay from Dutchess County, and for the first time, Amanda from Orange County was present as well. And we also had a representative of Port Authority, all presenting to the Irish ideas of what they could do when they travel to New York City and New York State during this coming year. And in view of what we have done with the Norwegian Air, we also had meetings with Aer Lingus, and we've just completed participation in a roadshow with Aer Lingus in both Dublin, Belfast, Limerick, and Cork to demonstrate our support for the airline that, quite frankly, most of the Irish use for obvious reasons. Next slide. That's a photograph of some Northern Ireland travel agents and a tour operator called Travel Solutions, which is the top tour operator that organizes winter sports activities. They've just returned on Saturday from a brief farm tour to the Hudson Valley, where they stayed at a hotel in Greene County and are planning to bring groups to Hunter Mountain during the coming winter. There is an incentive being offered by the tour operator, and the promotion of this incentive by our office in London to entice winter sports people to book early. In a nutshell, as an outcome of the education of these agents on this farm tour, Travel Solutions will be booking, has actually made reservations to book 6 trips during the coming winter of 30 persons each from December until the end of March. So this is a farm tour that will result in actual visits to New York State.
Thank you so much, Markley. I will interrupt the I Love New York activities report just to recognize Assemblyman O'Donnell from Manhattan, of course, who is the chair of the Assembly Tourism Committee. Assemblyman, I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to say, or if you're
not a thing. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. We're glad to have you here. Thank you so much. So continuing, we talked about our sales activities, our international activities. Of course, we want to talk about our marketing. We're going to start off by an always popular digital initiative we do, the I Love New York bracket. And my colleague, Anna Packman, who heads up our digital team, can present on that.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Markley.
So this is going to be actually a week from today. We are launching our 4th annual I Love New York Bracket Challenge. So if you're familiar with a popular sporting event that happens every March, whose name I cannot say unless the lawyers will drag me away, this is basically kind of the same thing, but with New York State tourism attractions instead of sports teams. And I don't like sports very much, so New York State tourism attractions are way more exciting. So before I kind of tell you about what we're doing this year, just want to sort of acknowledge everyone in the room here who helped make last year such a success. So not only is the bracket one of the most popular things we do in terms of digital activation from the consumer front, and by the way, we had 72,000 votes last year, which was a double-digit percentage increase from the year before, but it's an incredible partnership effort. So one of the things we did last year, which we're doing again, is we worked with our TPA partners to put together prize packages that would actually allow one lucky person to win a trip to one of the destinations featured. And that drove an incredible amount of engagement, both from consumers who were excited about potentially getting a free trip to New York State, and with all the partners and the attractions who were so active on social media promoting themselves. So shout out to TV House, because last year's winner was Animal Adventure Park. And as far as I know, April, the draft might be giving birth again, any day now. So it's very exciting. A lot of love for the Animal Adventure Park in the state. And essentially, we're taking those learnings from last year, in addition to just the overall metrics we track. We did a survey from people who participated in the bracket, and found that 98% of the people who came to the page and voted said that they now wanted to go to one or more of the attractions that were featured in the bracket. So really, show that this is driving intent in terms of actual tourism. So this year's bracket is launching next week. There are going to be 4 rounds, 16 attractions, representing all of our tourism regions. And we're going to let people vote once per calendar day. Again, we are partnering with all of our wonderful TPA partners, as well as JetBlue, who's giving away 4 flight certificates that will be a part of the prize. So truly opening this up to the whole country. And promoting it in all sorts of ways, using our social media networks, running some paid ads on Facebook and Instagram, and then launching Instagram stories for each round of the bracket. Now, you may be wondering, there's a lot of suspense. What are these 16 attractions? So, Kelly? A lot of diversity in terms of the types of attractions, types of interests that we're targeting, and we really appreciate everyone's involvement and help in this, and look forward to seeing you promoted to all of your fans next week. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And speaking of April the Draft, I was doing a site visit at the Northeast Classic Car Museum in Norwich, New York, and asking them, what can I Love New York and the division do to tourism do to help continuing to support the museum, and they said make sure to keep April's mom pregnant all the time. That's actually an interesting example of what we talk about of the rising tide, right? That all of our attractions feed each other. It feeds our regions, and so it's another great example. So our best to April's mom. I hope that keeps going well. Another initiative, the governor just announced the World Pride Ambassador Competition ahead of World Pride and the Stonewall 50 commemorations in New York City. World Pride ambassadors are going to be selected to highlight the diversity of New York State's LGBTQ community. So LGBTQ New Yorkers from across the state right now are being encouraged to submit a video of no more than 3 minutes to describe why they're proud of their municipality and their state, and what in their town and region they would want to show off to LGBTQ visitors. Those who are selected as World Pride ambassadors will be featured in select I Love New York World Pride promotions, as well as educational anti-discrimination efforts by the New York State Division of Human Rights. They will be invited to join I Love New York in New York City to be part of the celebration, including marching with us in the Pride March. The deadline for video submissions is March 31st, so there's still time. If you know of anyone or anyone in your circles, to let them know, please encourage them to go to ilovenewyork.com/LGBT or ilovenewyork.com/worldpride. Either one will get you to information on submitting a video to be a World Pride ambassador. I will now have Lisa Soto speak about our recent PR efforts.
Hello. I don't have a slide, but I do have a few quick things I want to mention that we've done recently. One happened, a smaller event that happened right before the New York Times Travel Show, which is the International Media Marketplace, otherwise many of you may know it as Trav Media. And the name is a little misleading because the majority of the journalists, I think pretty much all the journalists we met with were not international, they were domestic. We sent someone from Fin Partners to represent us there. They met with over 20 different travel journalists, which was great. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a single day networking event for travel journalists and tourism brands, and it takes place also in the Javits Center. We also recently completed a skiing and family familiarization trip in Rochester and Bristol. We had Family Traveler Magazine, Trekkaroo, Family Vacation Critic, and Red Tricycle, so all really good family-friendly publications, so hopefully we'll start to see the results of those soon. And now we're pretty much kind of winding down with the winter promotions and PR. We're always a season ahead, so we are diving right into summer. We're working on our upcoming summer media nights, some more, starting to plan out our fan tours for the spring and summer, as well as the usual press releases that we do and pitches, just really gearing up for summer, even though it doesn't feel like it yet, but we're trying to get into everybody in summer mode. So that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. In addition to the efforts we currently have going and have had going for some time, we're always trying to look to do new and better, make sure that we're staying current with trends. Part of that has to do with doing research to make sure that we're being as data-driven as we can be, and part of that is developing new programs that are going to reach new audiences. At prior tourism summits in years past, the governor already announced an accessibility tourism program. There also has been a senior tourism program that's been launched that started with a bill that was championed by Assemblywoman Donna Lombardo that we are now implementing as well. And my colleague Sarah Emmer is part of the work developing those programs. So an update on where we are with those.
Thank you. Yes, myself and Kelly Garofalo have begun work on an accessible tourism program to raise awareness of accessible attractions, activities, and destinations in New York State to travelers with varying accessibility needs. We're also working to provide travelers with a more accurate picture and description of the consumer experience at a lot of our must-see attractions throughout the state. To accomplish this, we turned to experts in the accessible tourism and training field and hired a group called Open Doors Organization. They've done great work with airports, transportation companies, and tourism destinations in expanding accessible tourism information and assisting them with training. They've helped us develop a set of criteria to measure the visitor experience for travelers with varying abilities. That includes mobility, sight, hearing, and cognitive impairments, and put that criteria into a concise survey which we sent out a few weeks ago. We've selected over 250 attractions to receive this first phase of the survey, and we'll also be conducting site visits to over 30 attractions that are a little bit more complex and need a little bit more assistance than just completing an online survey. Once all of this information is collected from the selected attractions, we'll be deciding the best ways to communicate this information to consumers, be it in a travel guide or updating our listings on our website. Attractions have already been very responsive to this survey. We have over 60 sites that have completed or started out the survey, so we're really looking forward to the information that will be collected. And we find it important to stress that this survey is not about ADA compliance. This is about providing the most accurate information possible to travelers that want to understand, what they can do when they come to New York State and travel here. There's already great work being done with accessibility throughout the state, and we want to amplify that, as well as provide good examples for other attractions that may be interested in learning more and developing accessible tourism programs of their own. We'll also be working with ODO to create best practices guidelines for the tourism industry to use, and anticipate later this year hosting a couple of workshops to conduct training and go through their recommendations. So stay tuned for more information on accessibility. Additionally, we're working on a senior tourism program, which is in response to a law that was passed to encourage seniors to consider New York State as a vacation destination. So far, we've created a page on ilovenewyork.com that includes travel information for seniors, as well as information about senior discounts and travel packages at various attractions and state parks. We're still in the early phases of developing this program, but we will be performing some research to understand this program and understand the market, and to provide the most useful information to seniors when they're visiting our platforms. We'll also be working with state agency partners like the Office of the Aging and state parks to promote this program and encourage seniors to take advantage of everything New York State has to offer. That's all for me.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to close out the activities report by commenting on our continued efforts toward maintaining positive industry relations and making sure we're doing our part to keep New York's tourism industry strong. We certainly try to attend as many industry events as we can throughout the year. We have coming up the Museum Association of New York Conference that I'm looking forward to attending, the New York State Travel Industry Association Annual Conference, which is in late April, so that both we can hear from the industry, which is obviously vitally important, and hear firsthand what's happening locally, statewide, so that we can improve what we're doing, and also so we can share our strategy, which we're hoping to do even more than we have in the past in terms of letting folks know our plans, our strategies, so that we can continue the synergy that we have, amplifying each other's voices and each other's messages, and keep rowing in the same direction to get where we need to be. So looking forward to being in Cooperstown in early April, and Buffalo in late April, and probably a lot of other places in between. So we look forward to that. And with that, Dan, that concludes the I Love New York activities report.
Okay. Thank you, Ross, and the entire I Love New York team. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions for Ross or anybody on the I Love New York team in any of the reports? Okay. If not, we're happy to welcome our three guest speakers here today. As I mentioned earlier, given today is the Tourism Action Day, we thought it'd be a great opportunity to hear from each of New York State's three major tourism industry associations. These groups are incredibly important to the partners for I Love New York, and we're very grateful for their collaborative and can-do spirit of the organizations and their leaders. It's because of them that New York State tourism can be so much more than the sum of its parts. We've asked them to tell us a little bit about their group represents, what it does, and what it's accomplished, and what the priorities are for the coming year. First, we have Mark Dorr, which is to my right. Mark currently serves as the president of the New York State Hospitality and Tourism Association, known as NISTA, and a nonprofit trade association representing more than 1,000 member businesses and individuals in the lodging and attractions industry. In addition to his role at NISTA, Mark also serves as administrator for the state's tourism industry coalition, a group of 25 tourism industry organizations that support the state's tourism industry on key funding and legislative issues. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Dan. Again, my name is Mark Dorr, and I just looked down at the agenda. There's 15 letters in this next little guest speaker, so we'll hope to clear all that up. Most of them have NYS in them. But again, I'm the president of the New York State Hospitality Tourism Association, and I'll get into what we primarily do just in a second. And I talked to Kelly before, and I said, we are heavy legislative advocacy. And she said, no, that's okay. We can hear about that at this meeting and not all marketing. So I'm happy to do that. But the reason many of us are here today is that it was the lobby day for the Tourism Industry Coalition, which again is made up of 25 different groups, mainly convention visitors bureaus, DMOs, TPAs, and they're here to talk about a couple of big issues, which are matching grants and I Love New York funding. And again, thank you to the Assembly Member O'Donnell, who the Assembly had in their One House bill the $5 million for matching grants, which for our industry is a huge, huge deal because if you're not aware, every dollar that a regional tourism agency spends, the state, through its specific program and application, will match that dollar for dollar. So if you're spending $100,000 on a marketing program for your area, through this program, that becomes $200,000. So it's a great program. It returns a great deal of investment for every $1 spent on tourism in New York State. It returns $7 to $8. So we want to thank you, Assemblymember O'Donnell, and we want to thank all the legislators that we talked to today, as well as in the Assembly, for making that happen. And also for the money we're hoping that is going to be in the budget a little bit enhanced for I Love New York, because our members, again, we have 1,000 members, most of them are hotels throughout New York State. And they realize the benefit of if their tourism promotion agencies are getting the proper funding, doing the proper business, that means the end result for our folks is more people are staying in hotels. So that's why we are so supportive of all the marketing that goes on in New York State and the tourism agencies that do that on a day-to-day basis that allows our folks to just make sure the hotels are clean and neat and have enough rooms and can take care of the guests, because if the guest comes, enjoys a great amusement park or a great cultural venue and has a good stay in a hotel, the one thing the hotel people will tell you first off is the repeat guest is the biggest guest that they have. They don't have to sell them again, they'll return, so if they have a great time, we're all working together. That's what we're all striving for as far as an industry. So we were here to do that on behalf of the Tourism Industry Coalition today. And from the Tourism Association standpoint, where we are with NISTA, legislatively, we had a fairly good start to the year. We have worked on, for many, many months, the call-in pay issue that was in the miscellaneous wage order. It wasn't exactly the hospitality wage order, but just recently, the last couple of weeks, the state government had said they weren't going to go any further with the call-in pay, which meant if you called somebody in and didn't give them enough time, you would have to pay a penalty as well as them coming in. So it was a big deal for our amusement parks, our ski areas, and I know that the Department of Labor, we did a bunch of hearings and we talked to them, and they heard from all sides of the issue. But for us, from the hotel industry and the members that we have in the parks and attraction, the ski area industry, that was a big deal for us and a big victory on that. One of the things from last year too that I'd like to report on is, if you were in the hotel this morning at the Renaissance, there was some new human trafficking legislation that came out for the hotel industry specifically, which put cards in the lobby, in the bathrooms, in the hotel rooms, giving everybody an 800 number to call if they have suspect any human trafficking, which in this day and age, in this culture, is just a great thing with great timing. And I'd just like to thank the legislature again, because they called us and said, hey, how can we do this? How can we make this work? A lot of our branded hotels were already doing it. So we were able to share with the state, here's how the branded hotels are already doing it, Hilton, Marriott, the IHGs of the world. They said, that's great. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can maybe work with the hotel industry to make that happen. So that was just a great example of how the state legislature works with the industry on specific issues to make sure that everything turns out well in the hotel and for the guests, and possibly being able to stop some of the human trafficking that is going on. Last couple quick things. Haven't heard anything about it in a long time, but the tip credit, which is a big hotel/restaurant issue, a lot of hearings last year. It kind of has gone away. We continue to monitor it. So that is one thing that we keep our eye on. And the other thing that came about from the hotel industry perspective is service animals. Anybody who has a hotel, trying to be able to give some definitions and some regulation to what is a service animal, what's a comfort animal, so that they know when they're checking in exactly what the hotel would need to do. It's in the very infant stages. It's one of the things we're working on. The Senate's come to us and say, you know, we're interested in working on this because we get a lot of calls and meetings from hotel folks saying, hey, we need to try to figure out a better way to manage the inventory of the animals coming in. So we're happy to be working with them in this session and going forward on the service animal issue. But if anybody in the room or in the industry has any specific issues, hotel related, that they'd like us to bring to the table, that's basically what we do. We're a lobby machine and an entity for the hotel and tourism industry on a daily basis. So that's my report, Dan.
Mark, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. Next, we have Don Jeffries, President of the New York State DMO Association. Don is also President and CEO of Visit Rochester, which he joined in 2013 and is tasked with driving the organization to higher levels of business growth. He previously served as CEO of the Rochester Broadway Theater League and owned Dollar Travel for nearly 20 years. Don also serves as the co-chair of Tourism and Arts Committee for the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council. Don, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being here. We're going to introduce you to the New York State Destination Marketing Organization. We are comprised of destinations and marketing executives who promote tourism and visitor experience throughout New York State. Our members represent destination marketing organizations from across the state, from Niagara Falls to Nassau County, and you'll see all our different logos up there. What is our work? What is our mission? Collaboration is at the heart of the work we do at New York State DMO Group. We work together to achieve the best results and the greatest economic impact of tourism in New York. Together, the counties that are our 18 members represent more than $60 billion in traveler spending and 681,000 jobs in New York State alone. As destination marketing representatives, we know firsthand the viable impact of tourism on our communities. Through jobs, tax revenue, and potential for economic development, it's important that we support one another in our efforts to grow the impact of tourism in our own communities and in New York State. Our organization is unique compared to other organizations in the state, no offense, that we take a very collaborative approach to booking business and attracting visitors in the meeting and convention business, group tour business, sports markets, and also the film industry. We also have a strong focus on advocacy, engaging our members in issues most closely related to the tourism industry. Destination development is one of the key things that we do for our areas to help grow tourism and the hospitality industry. As everyone in this room knows, and I'm preaching to the choir here, that tourism plays a critical role in New York's economy, and advocacy is a key component of how our organization can best contribute to the industry. Working to make a better effort with local and state lawmakers on tourism-related issues, advocating for the continuation of programs like tourism grants, Market New York grant, funding, film credits, and other events that generate economic activity. And I'd like to add my voice in thanking the Assemblyman. I had the pleasure of meeting with him, and I walked in and I said, I had 3 things to talk to you about, and you've already fixed them. So it was a quick meeting.
Here's to hoping we can keep it fixed, yes.
Well, thank you again for your time.
Yes, sure.
There was 4 other groups waiting to see him when I was there, so. Other focus is on advocating not only for our own destination, but New York State as a whole. To that end, we regularly collaborate with I Love New York, and I just want to say, Ross, that you and your team have taken it to a new level. You really have. It's fantastic. And we work with them on familiarization tours, marketing efforts, and more. We work with state agencies also, as Mark talked about, on issues related to the tourism industry. And the New York State, our group of 18 is represented on a national and statewide and national organizations. We are board members at U.S. Travel, Destinations International, American Bus Association, U.S. Travel Foundation, NISTA, and NISTEA. One of the examples of our collaboration Ross touched on it was the tremendous success of the ABA. We came together as a group to sponsor that breakfast, and we couldn't do it individually. And that's where the collaboration comes in. We compile our resources together, and we were thrilled that you were there and got to see it. That tour operators business is a huge business for us in the tourism industry. We also had, as part of that, appointments with individual tour operators, and we saw a lot of interest and a lot of follow-up from them due to these meetings. On the sales side, we collaborate on several meeting and convention sales initiatives on a national level. By working together, our organization has been able to have a presence and represent New York State at national trade shows and marketplaces, including such groups as the American Society of the Association of Executives annual meeting, where a lot of the meeting planners and people that plan meetings all over the country come together, and we get to have one-on-ones with them. So the Washington, D.C. market is going to be one of our new agenda items to be more involved in those markets. Similar to the efforts at ABA, we have plans as an organization to continue to collaborate on meetings and convention sales efforts. Also in sports, we as a group will be at the next annual meeting of the National Association of Sports Commission. Sports is big business in New York State, and we have fantastic resources. And a plug for my hometown, the Senior PGA Championship will be in Rochester, New York in May. And if you need tickets, call me. The New York State DMO as a resource is its members. And one of the neatest things we do is get together and collaborate and talk about ideas. We have people that have been in the industry for a long time, and we'll say to some of our partners, yeah, we tried that, we're looking at doing this, these are the dollars it takes. It's really a great effort. We support ESD, including the welcome centers and overall marketing plans. As I said earlier, we support Ross and the I Love New York team. And New York State, while we compliment your work, we love working together with you guys. It's terrific. And I just want to thank everybody for letting us speak today. I want to thank the Assemblyman again, and I also would like to thank Governor Cuomo. We looked at a chart earlier that showed that almost several years ago, the tourism spending in New York State was below $300,000. Now I think it's $70 million. So I want to thank the governor and the legislature for keeping this up. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Don. Any questions for Don? Okay, Don, thank you. Finally, we have Bob Provost, President and CEO of the New York State Tourism Industry Association. Good afternoon. Born in Bayshore, Long Island, Bob loves New York, vacationing everywhere from Bolt Castle to New York City, Lake Placid to Corning, with stops everywhere in between. Prior to his position, Bob co-founded 4 New Jersey DMO CVBs with the catalyst behind the creation of the New Jersey DMO Association, served on the board of New Jersey TIA for 8 years. We should have never let you go, Bob, that's for sure. And co-founded New Jersey's first 2 tourism improvement districts. When Bob joined in early 2017, he had no idea he'd be joining the staff and as president CEO in September of 2018. When the position was posted, he applied because he felt there was a tremendous potential yet to be realized in the organization and terrific people to work for. Thanks for being here with us today, Bob.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. About NISTEA, we're a little over 200 members. About half of our members would be the TPAs, DMOs, CVBs, other acronyms, chambers of commerce, and generally the destinations of New York. About a quarter of our members are attractions, museums, resorts, lodging accommodations, and other facilities. And then the remaining quarter are, interestingly enough, the media and the marketing firms that support and work with our members. And that plays into a major part of our role. Trying here. Okay. The first thing that with an organization, and again, I am closing in on 150 days, so we're kind of starting at the beginning in this discussion, but we need to have a sense of vision and mission for who we are and where we're going. It has to be aspirational. It needs to aim high. You have to be ambitious. You have to be inspirational, though. You have to emotionally engage people who want to be a part of where you're going, and you have to be motivational in that you have to tell people we're going from point A to a more desirable point B, and this is how we're going to get there. You've got to be able to chart the path for them, and you trigger excitement when you do this. You also trigger engagement and awe. You've got to bring everybody along on the journey. So, looking at Nestea and articulating who we are and what our mission is, we strive to increase and enhance economic growth, employment, quality of life, and pride of place across New York. You know, our mission isn't to grow tourism. This is our mission, the outcome of growing tourism. And how do we do that? We realize the potential of New York's tourism industry, and we do it also by facilitating the success of our members. There we go. Too much AV here. But you need that ambitious mission. And in our case, that ambitious mission is for New York State to lead the world in tourism, and for our members to lead the industry within New York in tourism. Marketing plans are not that different from planning a trip. You define a destination. Where are we going? We just spoke about a destination, leading the world in tourism. You state quantifiable goals and outcomes. You look at your sales, market position, your brand recognition, you route the trip, and you develop the initiatives that will get you there. And along the way, you make sure that all of these plans and initiatives are working, and you evaluate them in hindsight. With that in mind, Nestea must set the standard for best practice in everything we do. We embrace evolutionary change, developing a culture amongst our entire membership of constant learning and constructive change in a dynamic marketplace. And while doing so, we have to create an environment where we stop and celebrate success and acknowledge individual achievement. Most of all, we need to celebrate the fact that New York State tourism is winning. And the track record is there, and the numbers have been provided to us by our friends at I Love New York. So what do? We're creating, promoting, and managing opportunities for cooperative relationships and partnerships that will drive success for our members. We're raising consumer awareness, appreciation, and most importantly, utilization. It's one thing to generate impressions and other media statistics. It's most important that something happens as an outcome of those. And so by utilization, we're talking about booking. People are coming and doing their travel and vacation opportunities in New York. They're especially, in our case, we're focused on making sure that they enjoy those offered by our members. We're enhancing the knowledge, talent, skills, and careers of the tourism professionals in New York and the efficacy of the industry overall. And we're constructively and collaboratively developing and advocating for government policies and programs. Yes, that will strengthen the tourism industry, but that's not the end goal, benefiting New York. And that's all that we've been talking about all day in Tourism Advocacy Day, is how tourism benefits the state of New York. Again, that's the end game. The end game isn't more tourism. It's what tourism does to create jobs and drive economic growth. We work with the state of New York, specifically Nestea, on a Market New York grant. Nestea, together with Market New York and Brand USA, brought in 28 partners across the state of New York. The Market New York grant was $375,000. We also brought in support matching that from our members, and Brand USA matched our collective contribution 3-1. I talked to, excuse me. There. In the top left corner, you see we generated 1.2 billion media impressions abroad and 3.4 million consumer engagements with this beautiful print and digital and video presentation. Again, Europe, United Kingdom, China, Australia, Canada, Germany, and so on. But that's not the important part. The important part is, what does that do for New York? And, we have one small example here. We had a $375,000 investment from the state of New York. What did we do with it? Well, in a 42-day period tracking the results of that Brand USA campaign on Expedia.com, we booked 10,452 overnight rooms, generating in lodging sales over $1.4 million, roughly 4-to-1 ratio for the state investment. But you go beyond that. That's the initial ROI that we talk about. You look at what those people booking those rooms are going to spend on food service, local transportation, retail spending, recreation, and you get to a new number, and it's over $5 million. And the state's return on that market New York investment is 13-to-1. And that's the kind of thing that we need to bring to the table and communicate to our assemblymen and to our senators so that they understand the value of the investment that the state's making in the budget. We also run regular domestic co-op programs working with our members. In this year, we've already launched AAA publication and digital campaigns in the Philadelphia, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., New England, New Jersey, New York City, and Long Island markets. We've launched the Mid-Atlantic states campaign with the AARP publication targeting the 50 to 59 demo, and we've worked with Hearst Women's Travel Group magazines in 11 states, reaching 2 million households. We also have digital print integration. All of our campaigns now carry both aspects of delivering the message to the consumer. And in the last 6 months or so, we've delivered some 15,000 leads to our members off of those campaigns. We also run a travel show program for our members, representing NISTIA members at travel shows where they don't have the resources in terms of staffing and travel expenses to be personally. We have 44 registered partners across the state and represent them at 17 travel shows in 2019. Coming up, it's already been mentioned, Ross will be at the 2019 New York State Tourism Conference in Buffalo. It'll be opened by Roger Dow, the president of U.S. Travel, on day one. Day two, we will have Karen Greenberg from Brand USA. The theme is inclusion, and inclusion comes back to the marketing programs that we talked about. We want to underscore for our members that inclusion is a 360-degree process, and you need to, in the process of pursuing your mission, you need to bring your community along with you. The people who live there, the businesses that are doing business in your community and how they benefit from the visitor economy. You want to talk to your civic and elected leadership within your community. You want to also work with all of the different travel marketers, media organizations, and partners that help you get the word out and build your business. You also want to embrace your consumers and your employees and embrace them in such a way that you regard them as partners in this process, part of your success formula. And so we've been traveling around the state for the last 6 months, gathering best practice examples. Don's organization will be there to talk about their Visitor Industry Council. We have people from Discover Niagara that are going to be talking about their Distance Learning Ambassadors Program and so on and so forth. Most of the best practice in this industry occurs in New York State. You don't have to travel around the world, and so we're bringing them together to share those best practices. As we move forward, we'll be expanding marketing programs to integrate collaborative member objectives, to bundle consumer experience and itineraries, and develop more non-traditional partnerships. We'll be expanding our travel show program and the technology we use at it. We'll be using greater engagement of earned media opportunities and travel journalists, increasing strategic partnerships with relevant state agencies. I Love New York being paramount among those, but Ross will be the first person to tell us, go talk to the people at parks, go talk to the people environmental conservation, go talk to the people at the Department of Labor and Transportation, but also the different statewide associations. I don't need to tell you we work with NISTA and the NJDMO group, but we're also working with the New York State Bicycling Coalition, the Manning Group representing the museums, and many other associations in order to look at our common and aligned objectives and improving the media and member engagement, customizing the co-ops that we already have, which are successful, to match member needs moving into the future, and moving forward with a robust partnership and coordination with I Love New York, ensuring that all of our activities are complementary and synergistic to what they're already doing. And I have too much going on here. So that's kind of a summary of our program. We're looking also at distance learning programs for our members. We're looking at webinars and professional development. We've reached out and begun to talk with the Council of Independent Colleges and University and the SUNY system about developing professional accreditation programs that literally would enable us to develop internships and pathways to success for future tourism professionals in New York.
Great, thank you, Bob. Are there any questions for Bob on the phone here?
I actually just want to say one thing that I said last night and that I've been saying over today, but can't be said enough, which is how lucky and fortunate we are to have such strong trade organizations supporting the tourism industry here in New York State. We can't do our work well at the Division of Tourism without them, without our partners. It's not necessarily that way in every state. This isn't a given. I'm on listservs and have meetings with the directors of the state DMOs from the other states, and I can tell you there are questions and concerns that arise about relationships with their partners. We are thrilled in New York that we have a relationship where we can work together, we speak frequently, we meet frequently, we collaborate on efforts. And probably most importantly, we have the ability to not always agree with each other. If there's something that isn't working, we can talk to each other about that. We can work to do better. That's actually part of the point. If we were always getting along, that probably means we're not doing something right, because there's always more and better to do. And so I just really wanted to put very formally on the record how appreciative we are. I hope everyone else is as impressed as we are to hear today just a little bit on the great work that these organizations are doing. We're thrilled to be in partnership with you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you for those comments. Do we have any new business? Okay, if not, as a reminder, our next meeting will be Monday, May 21st, back in New York City. And again, that will be at 11 o'clock to 12:30, I believe. And that's our normal meeting time. And if you need an updated list of meeting dates, please see Kelly or email Kelly after the meeting, and I'm sure she'll be able to accommodate you. So at this time, I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and we'll adjourn the meeting at 2:12. Thank you, everyone.